House in Baltimore for Super Bowl 51. We'll be having live coverage out on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNST TV page all week next week, so you never know what's going to happen, especially when you're in Central Time Zone. It's even worse in West Coast Time Zone. We wind up being there all night. This guy is headed to Houston as well. He has been covering the Patriots for a couple of years now. To be his second Super Bowl, he covers them for MassLive.com. He is Kevin Duffy, one of our defending champions here. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Kevin R. Duffy. Dude, what's going on, man? Packing the bags. We here in Baltimore, we know this routine, not nearly as well as the Patriots do, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the beat for 3 years, and 2 of them had ended in Super Bowl runs, and then obviously last year was an AFC title game. So I think when you sign up to cover the Patriots, you always know that the season's going to last about a month and a half longer for you than it's going to last for the beat writers of other teams, but there's no complaints with that. It's pretty awesome to cover such a successful franchise and really one of the best dynasties in the history of sports.
But the other beat writers get to cover, owners, press conferences and coaches' press conferences and firings and hirings and all of that. But none of that goes on up in New England, right? And, I would say more than anything, there's such an incredible level of expectation there, right? I mean, you're around it every day that going out in the divisional round, while in Oakland it's kind of acceptable, in places like Jacksonville and Cleveland, in Tennessee, it'd be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Anything short of going down to Houston and finishing this thing becomes a massive disappointment. And Brady's and Belichick, they both had it both ways. They both know what it's like to win these and know what it's like to lose these. Obviously, as a favorite in this game, and really no one on the other end in Atlanta having experienced anything like this other than maybe some of the coaches. The Patriots know the road and how to do this tactically over the next 12 days to put together a game plan that can win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what there's a few factors. I do want to touch on what you said earlier with the expectation. It was kind of an odd scene to me in the locker room after they clinched the AFC Championship game, and they really just beat the hell out of Pittsburgh. It was a strange scene because the guys weren't that fired up compared to even what they were in 2014 when I remember being in that locker room after they beat the Colts. It was maybe it was because they were out celebrating on the field for like 20 minutes after the game, but it really, it might seem cliche, but it seemed like it was just kind of business as usual, like on to the next game. And that's partly because I'm sure knowing the health of their team, knowing the depth of their team, they expected to make the Super Bowl this year. I don't think there's any question about that. They were the superior team in the AFC all season long. And the second thing you said, having the experience of being there and the coaches being able to game plan, that's part of what has made the Patriots so effective over the years is they can tailor a game plan specifically to the opponent they're playing. You saw a team like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh couldn't adjust to what the Patriots were doing. Pittsburgh rolled out the same defense that they play against everybody pretty much, basically playing, cover 3, playing a lot of zone, and Brady picked them apart, and they didn't really have anything else they could go to defensively. That's not how the Patriots do things. The Patriots, they take the week to dissect the opponent, to figure out, okay, what are the strengths? What do we need to take away? Where can we exploit weaknesses? It's going to be a challenge in Atlanta, though, because this is one of the best offenses I think we've seen, possibly in NFL history. I think only 8 offenses have scored more points in the regular season than the Falcons ever. So this is a very good team they're going up against.
Well, I was going to say, from a matchup standpoint, this is sort of delicious because both of these teams really are surging. I mean, as much as it sucked to watch bad football the last 3 weeks, and bad games this past Sunday, the Patriots really embarrassed the Steelers. The Falcons really, really embarrassed the Packers. And I think when you get teams surging in that direction, at least for all of us going down to Houston to promote this thing next week and talk about it, it has created incredibly interesting storylines. I mean, right on to Matt Ryan having gone to college in Boston, right? I mean, there's storylines all the way through this thing.
Yeah, I think the sentiment up here was, I believe most people would have, from a drama standpoint, would have preferred the Rodgers-Brady Super Bowl just because of the name brand of Aaron Rodgers and, Packers, Patriots.
Hey, I think the league would have preferred the Cowboys being there, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that was the way this thing was supposed to go, right?
Right. And I think the Cowboys would have been an interesting matchup against the Patriots, too, just because they really have run it on everybody this year. But the Falcons, for a team that averaged 33.8 points a game, and they really flew under the radar nationally for much of the season. That wasn't a team that people were talking about up here as a team that potentially could meet the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but they finished so hot. And the thing that stands out to me about Atlanta is that a lot of these historic high-powered offenses, like the 2013 Broncos, like the 2007 Patriots, the 2000 Rams, those teams slowed down at the end of the season. Defenses began to figure out more or less how to keep them under control, and the numbers really dropped off at the end of the year. The opposite is happening with Atlanta. Through their first 12 games, Atlanta averaged, I believe it was like just over 32 points a game. Their past 6 games, they're at 39 points a game. So they're actually getting better and better. So I think this is the most compelling Super Bowl matchup that we could have had for the Patriots.
Well, I think the Cowboys running that road grader offense and that O-line in there, that would have been something to see, I think. But, all that being said, there's a mismatch here. There's a matchup issue with Julio Jones, and the Patriots, I'm sure, are going to double him. I'm sure they're going to try to take him away. Hey, the Falcons have won a lot of games without Julio Jones catching 9 balls for 180 yards or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with the Falcons. And Matt Patricia touched on it a little bit, talking about the defense. So when you have someone like Julio Jones and you have someone who can stress you basically at all 3 levels, and particularly deep, you're going to oftentimes teams will devote 2 deep safeties to take away the big plays for the Falcons. And what that opens up is underneath throws to the back. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman have averaged 60 yards a game receiving this year. Those guys, if you watch the Falcons play Denver, they split Coleman out, and he was matched up against the linebacker. He had like 160 receiving yards in that one game. So they have multiple guys that can hurt you, and that's why they're here. They wouldn't, if it was just Julio Jones, they wouldn't be 11-5 in their regular season. They wouldn't have made the Super Bowl. So again, I think you're right about the Cowboys. Certainly a different kind of matchup, but I don't see the Patriots defense like totally shutting out Atlanta. I don't think that's going to happen.
Kevin Duffy covers all things Patriots for MassLive.com. You can follow his journey out on Twitter, and thousands do, at Kevin R. Duffy. He will be in Houston next week, as will Luke and I for Super Bowl 51. Any of you interested in our London trip, we've also got that on sale. You can toss me an email, nasty@WNST.net. We now play there in September. For you, Kevin, you're 3 years into this beat up there. For most of the reporters, and look, I know Bob Ryan and the Shaughnessy's and the people that have been around there for 20 years, that remember the old stadium and the old ways, and Bob Kraft taking the team to Connecticut. I mean, I go back to the old timers with all of that, but I think there's a part for people like you who watch the games maybe with a beer in your hand 10 years ago or 15 years ago now, going back with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and saying, I wonder what that's like in the era of McGinnis or Bruschi, or going back to Randy Moss and Corey Dillon and all the Joe Andrewsi's, Light, all those guys that are long gone. You weren't around for that, but you're around for this. Give me a little thought about coming into this in the middle of it, and what preconceived notions are, and what it's like to cover that football team on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I grew up in Connecticut, on the western side of Connecticut, so I wasn't like a Patriots fan. I also wasn't really a Jets or Giants fan. I was just general, basketball. I went to UConn, was a big UConn fan. I loved the NFL my whole life, so I just watched games. I used to watch the Patriots a lot, and I kind of wish they did move to Hartford. That would have been good for me when I was a kid. But anyway, I came in, and the beat to me was, it was such a good job because of how high profile the Patriots are, and just you're covering history really, from sports terms. I mean, there might not ever be a dynasty like this ever again. And the preconceived notions I had were, I've seen the Belichick press conferences. I know it's probably going to be difficult to get guys to open up, kind of thing, because I know, everyone I think is aware of how the Patriots are with the media. They're just a little more guarded than other
and
places.
Belichick will never know your name, right? I mean, literally, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've covered the NFL for 21 years here. We've had a whole different ride here with Marcia Broden, Billick, and Harbaugh than, my life and my career if I was in the Boston media the last 25 years certainly would be a lot different. I mean, just being around the Red Sox is different, too. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
there's an arrogance built in there that's allowed in Boston that you don't get away with in, let's say, Jacksonville, right? Unless you're a college football team.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if Belichick didn't win so much, then I don't know if the way he his press conferences wouldn't be as well received by the fans. But I mean, the fans love it, and it is pretty funny sometimes when you sit back and you listen to him, his non-answers that he has. But the hard part, and you say Belichick will never know your name, and there's certainly something to that because there's so many people covering the team, so it's hard to even stand out just from the pack because not only so many people covering it, but so many really great reporters who have been doing it for a long time and have good built-in sources. I can't imagine there's a more difficult team to cover in the NFL. It's certainly a challenge just because of there's so many. I could go down the list from Mike Reese, Tom Curran, Jeff Howe. I don't know if these names mean anything to you guys out there, but these guys are tremendous reporters and great writers.
Well, in being in there, is it different than maybe you thought it was going to be, I guess? I mean, we all know the success, but then you wonder the methods to the success. And look, I think NFL Films has done some, incredible things behind the scenes with, the life of Belichick and Brady and how they game plan and, taking away the other, books have been written. Holly's written a couple of books, for crying out loud. I mean, and then you come into this thing and you have those preconceived notions. I guess it still is fun covering the team because they do win and everything they do is measured. Right? I mean, there's nothing that happens around there that Belichick didn't sign off on first. He runs the joint.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. There's I think that's a really interesting thing that I've gotten into the last couple of years. I've written a few pieces about just like the process of how things work in New England. I wrote one earlier this year about what Belichick puts you through to hire even like an entry level assistant coach, a guy who's going to be basically just looking at film and recording data for, whatever, 100 hours a week.
And he literally doesn't want anybody else from any other organization or any other culture or any other.
Right.
Yeah, literally, he wants everyone to be completely green so they get his gospel indoctrinated, correct?
Exactly. He takes in, most of those guys started as what they would call a coaching assistant or a quality control coach, and the process to get to even interview with him for that is pretty grueling and extensive. And Belichick kind of puts them through that extensive interview because he knows the job is going to be really tough in itself. So he wants to see if guys just have enough wherewithal to do it. And he likes taking in young guys. I mean, Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels were in their probably mid-20s when they came to the Patriots. They didn't have much experience. Patricia had been a grad assistant at Syracuse. McDaniels had served a year as a grad assistant at Michigan State under Nick Saban. So these are, he takes young guys, he basically teaches them his way of doing things, and then he promotes from within. So that's kind of the upside to going to the Patriots. If you look at the data from a lot of other teams, say when a tight ends coach leaves from like the Bengals, oftentimes they'll hire another coach from outside who doesn't have any familiarity with the system, or maybe someone who a coach worked with a long time ago. There's maybe some connection, but in the Patriots, when a position coach leaves or when a coordinator leaves, oftentimes that job is filled from within. So when you sign up to work for Belichick, it might suck because of the hours and the intensity that you have to do everything with, but there is room for growth, and that's the track record. And look at Patricia McDaniels, Bill O'Brien. You can look a lot of the position coaches today, Chad O'Shea, the receivers coach, Josh Boyer, Stephen Belichick, his son. These guys all started at the bottom and are working their way up within the Patriots organization.
He is Kevin Duffy. He covers the Patriots for MassLive.com. He's headed to Houston. We're headed to Houston for Super Bowl 51. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Kevin R. Duffy or out at MassLive.com. Last thing for you, Kevin. You expect them to win? I mean, you're going down there next week. I know they expect to win, but are you expecting to write a game-winning Super Bowl story next Sunday?
Yes, probably. I think Atlanta's very good. And I don't think it's going to be like the Pittsburgh game where it just gets out of hand in the second half and there's no chance that the Atlanta's going to come back. But I do expect them to win just because I think all year long, I mean, they've probably been the most well-rounded team in football. They've stayed with the exception of the Rob Gronkowski injury. They've been relatively healthy. They've had good fortune in that regard. And it's what we talked about at the beginning. They just game plan well for opponents. I don't think they're going to hold Matt Ryan to 17 points, but the Falcons aren't scoring, 40 against them or 35. I think that they will hold them, as in check as you can, maybe in like the mid-20s. So I'm looking at a game that's, 31-24, something along those lines. I think the 3-point spread is, I could see that creeping up a little bit in the days before the Super Bowl, just because, the Patriots are just, they're so tough, and when they have 2 weeks to game plan for a team, and when they're healthy, they really are operating on a level that most NFL teams are not. So I do expect them to win. Would I be shocked if they lose? Not necessarily, because I think Atlanta's a really good team. But I'm heading in there fully expecting a fifth Super Bowl for Brady and Belichick.
Well, the Falcons' defense is going to have to show me their big boy pants. You know what I mean? I maybe
Right.
a little bit against Green Bay the other day, which was depleted, showing up in the NFC South, against, some real teams. I mean, Drew Brees, that offense is unbelievable. I mean, Cam Newton, when they've gotten it going, can be okay. I think this is a different bird for the Dirty Birds next Sunday. If the defense holds up, they'll win. If not, I think that Matt Ryan will score points. I don't think he'll throw picks. Yeah. I know the Patriots in that Ravens game about 7 weeks ago, we were up there. It was very unique because the Patriots put the ball on the carpet a couple of times and turned the ball over. I don't think the Falcons can count on turnovers. I think they're going to have to count on making stops on third down, period.
Yeah, that Ravens game to me was kind of an aberration because the Patriots have been so good ball security-wise all year long.
Well, it helps when you take the air out of the ball. It's harder to fumble when that happens, Kev. You know that. I mean, right?
Yeah,
I wish I were kidding, but I'm not. But I know you've written about that a little bit. But it is uncanny that they don't fumble in Foxborough, isn't it?
They don't fumble. I think they actually. I would have to check this, but I'm pretty sure their fumble numbers are actually pretty high this year. They just didn't lose a lot of them. So
it's because they put the air back in the balls. I mean, go back and study 2004 to 14,
Yes, their fumble numbers were always a lot lower. And then the interception numbers were record low this year. Brady only threw 2 in the whole regular season. Actually, and Brissett and Garoppolo didn't throw any. And then you had 2 that Brady threw in the playoff game against the Texans. So you're right about Atlanta. If you're counting on the Patriots giving you a short field and making things easy, you probably should be counting on some other stuff too, because that's probably not going to happen. They take exceptional care of the ball, and Atlanta's going to have to beat them straight up. The Patriots don't often beat themselves. Atlanta will have to win the game if they're going to win it.
Hey, man, we will see you down in Houston next week, somewhere along the lines of Radio Row. From an old guy to a young guy, yeah, man, these are the times of your life, kid. Rest up, go down to Houston. My advice to you, drink liberally and eat lots of Tex-Mex food. That's my advice to you.
Oh, I will eat a lot of Tex-Mex food. I don't think I'll be drinking too much, though, because I'm an old man too. I can't fight through the hangover, so I think
pick a night. Just pick one night and sacrifice yourself. You're young. Trust me.
Okay,
all right.
I can get on board with that.
From a 23-year Super Bowl veteran, just make a mistake. Do something foolish. Don't make it as big as the Falcons. A guy did. Eugene did 20 years ago. But
Eugene Robinson.
Right,
yeah.
But make a mistake or two. It's okay. You'll make up for it.
Okay. All right. I'll store that advice when it's Friday night and media availability is all wrapped up.
Yeah, put it in your expense account. Don't worry about a thing, man. I'm not saying a word. Kev, we'll see you next week, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thank you, Nestor.
You got it. Kevin R. Duffy at MassLive.com. You go check him out. He covers the Patriots for a living. We're going to be covering the Patriots next week, as well as the Atlanta Falcons. We'll be down in Houston for Super Bowl 51. Luke and I will be on Radio Row all week long. Our London trip is still on sale. You can email me that, nasty@WNST.net. It's up on our road trips at the website as well. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Snapchat. We're on Instagram. We stream live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And you can find us in the Bio Toyota Audio Vault baseball 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. And if there's any breaking news at all, you get it first on the WNST text servers. That means Orioles, Ravens, Terps. Big stuff comes to you first. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis will be here on Thursday getting you ready for the Senior Bowl and the weekend. And we're flying away. We're going to try to have some fun next week because it's what we do, even when the Ravens aren't in the Super Bowl. But the Terps, the Caps, the Wizards, Orioles, they're all keeping us busy around here. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.